Chapter 12, The Agony and the Ecstasy. Now I'm into the meat of a novel, the daily slog and joy of writing each scene out. The boring part. Sometimes it feels like shoveling shit from a sitting position as per Stephen King. And sometimes, the most exciting part. You've got a placeholder first scene, maybe even a couple more. But you have a whole book to write. That's fine. That's what we signed up for. We can do this. I love writing my scenes in the order that they will be in the book. Not everyone writes like that. And even as an extreme planner, you don't have to either. You can write them as they occur to you. That's the beauty of a scene list. You know you'll eventually get to those scenes. So, if you dream of a perfect blocking for a fight scene, you can write that now and insert it as you write the others around it. Sure, you can do this as a pantser, but you have much less chance of scrapping that scene because your pantsing went off in another direction. That gives a great chance at more creativity, but it's not so good at keeping your story on track. Discipline. The first thing to keep in mind is that this is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Sprinters tend to get burned out quickly and quit. You don't churn out a 100,000-word novel in a weekend. It takes time even for the most voracious planner. I set myself a schedule that works for my lifestyle. I work full-time, but I don't have children, so I have the luxury of being able to carve out my time as I wish. If you are a parent, especially of small children, this can be especially challenging. One author I know woke up at 4:30 a.m. every day, an hour before her youngest children rose, to have time to dedicate to her writing. You do what you must. I typically wrote during my lunch hour at work. Because I had already planned things out, I didn't need to waste that precious, limited time figuring out where I needed to go with the scene. I had been considering that over the last 23 hours, since I stopped writing the day before. I had a vision of what I wanted to happen and where it should end up. I don't write one scene a day, in general. I go by word count, because I am numeric and goal-oriented. I set myself a 2,000-word-a-day minimum, with weekends off. That gives me, on average, 10,000 words a week, and 40,000 words a month. Which means, once my plan is done, I can write the first draft of a novel in about 2 months, give or take. If I miss that, not too bad, I can usually make it up the next day or so. If I have too many misses, though, I have to give myself a stern talking to. Or at least admit that life has gotten the better of me and adjust my expectations. For one novel, it fought me the whole way, and I was happy to get 1,000 words a day for a full month. External stresses made it necessary, because life happens sometimes. This is not for everyone, but it works for me. If I am on a roll, I can get those 2,000 words out in an hour, because I've already pre-written that scene in my head. By the time I get to my keyboard, I'm simply transcribing what I have already created into a document. It does help that I have a decent typing speed around 70 words per minute. It also helps that my writing style is very cinematic, according to feedback from others, and therefore I play the movie in my mind and just write the script as it unfolds. I do tend to give the setting a short shrift during my initial draft, so my second draft often involves fleshing out the physical details to get a better grounding. The purpose of a first draft is to exist. Something else I do, as a goal-oriented person, is keep track of my progress. If I have 65 scenes planned out, and I've done 16 of them, that means my ending word count looks like it will be about 95,000 words. As I said earlier, my average scene length is 1,000 to 1,100 words. I have a calculation where I enter my total word count in my spreadsheet. It breaks out my daily word count, weekly word count, and keeps me going strong. If I'm worried about things getting too short for a novel, I'll add a subplot or flesh out some scenes more deeply. If I'm worried about it being too long, I might remove one. However, I usually do neither until the second draft. Incidental research. Sometimes the subplots just pop up. In Misfortune of Vision, the main character, a 65-year-old grandmother, might have a friend. An old soldier, chief raider, cousin to her chief. Of course, she's cousin to the chief as well. Most of the older folk of the clan are related in some way to the chief. It's called a Derbfine, anyone who shares a grandfather. It's from the Derbfine that the next leader is usually chosen, not necessarily the son of the present one. That means a chief has to groom his chosen successor, and still it won't be assured. Men of the clan must choose the wisest leader. Oh, I'm digressing down the path of historical research. Sorry. I do that a lot while writing. I get caught into a rabbit hole. Hopefully that research pays off later, but often it's just background information I keep in mind while writing. What types of flowers would be growing on that hillside in 12th century Ireland in May? Did Vikings have a village nearby? What sort of foods would be sold at the market? It is certainly possible to get so lost in the incidental research that you forget to write. Don't let it happen too often, or you'll never finish. One of my author friends types elephant wherever she needs to come back to do incidental research, so her writing flow isn't interrupted. Such an insertion is easily found with scan/search functions later, during the editing phase. Characters coming to life. Now that I'm into the meat of my novel, my characters are beginning to come to life. Sometimes they come to life in ways I wasn't counting on. For instance, my main character, Orla, is becoming even more bitter and sarcastic than I had first imagined. And Clodagh has some sort of PTSD from childhood trauma. She also has manifested her gift of the sight earlier than I had anticipated. My antagonist, Declan, has turned into a sympathetic main character in his own right, with his own antagonist. The smith, Trigvi, is becoming a great character. First a mentor, teaching Declan some basics of the blacksmithing art, then he becomes the bad guy by trying to take Declan's girl. It's all becoming much more complex than I had originally planned. This is a good thing. Even the best planner cannot plan everything in their novel. I find it much easier to let the characters speak to me. At one point, I was going to have Declan pull a Jean Valjean and steal from a priest who was kind to him. He told me in no uncertain terms that he was not that desperate, thank you very much. The priest was kind and he was honorable, at least for now. Yes, this may mean adding scenes, deleting them, adding characters, changing subplots, and maybe even changing part of your main plot. Go with it. Your muse speaks through you and your characters. Go with the flow. Any other clichés I can throw out here? Oh, I know. Let it go.